Thank you so much for joining, guys. As I think more people are joining in, so we'll just start off just with a quick intro. I'm Nilesh. I head marketing at CustomerSuccessBox. Some of you have been at the previous webinar, so you know me from there. Just to let you know, it's being recorded. So in case you're missing out on this, don't worry, we'll hit your inbox by tomorrow. Coming to the webinar, we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic, which is Account Health 360, which is basically our take on account health and why we realize the need for a modern version of account health scoring. We are glad to have Anadi Raj with us. He's a seasoned B2B SaaS product manager. As you just heard, he's worked in multiple functions such as product, business operations, support, customer success, and finally, ending up in product management. He has 7+ years of rich experience. He leads product at CustomerSuccessBox, has previously led product at Kayako, a customer support platform. And Anadi packs a lot of practical experience in both support and success, and is an expert at leading organizations from conception to implementation. So feel free to ask as many questions as you want. We'll try to take questions in between the webinar as well as at the end of it. And we really hope you have a great time on the webinar today. So I'll hand over to you, Anadi, from here.
Cool. And just quickly introducing, so I'm Puneet, and I'm in the same room, essentially watching all the chat along with Nilesh, who's at a different location, obviously. So I'll be chatting away, and any questions that you have, I'll try to bring up to you, Anadi, as there are opportunities. So we're watching the chat, so let's keep it as a dialogue as we go through this. Over to you, Anadi.
Thanks for the introduction, Puneet. A very good morning or good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I'm really excited to have you all, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to take away some of our own learnings around health score and put it to use at your organizations. Before I begin, I want to quickly cover what is CustomerSuccessBox and what do we do, just so that we are familiar with the company in itself. So CustomerSuccessBox is an outcome-driven customer success platform for B2B SaaS. We have specifically designed it for the inside success team. I think that's the core of what we do, and this is all I'm gonna talk about the product. I'm gonna jump into the agenda for today's webinar. I'm gonna be discussing health score from very basics around why have a health score in the first place, to how we have tried to do this earlier, and a lot of success technologies kind of take this approach today as well. And we want to talk about why it works at certain level, but at another level why it doesn't work at all. And we want to kind of arrive to a framework which let us measure better health. Once we have established that framework, we want to use that framework to come to a perfect health for a B2B SaaS account. And then we want to talk about the 5 dimensions of account health before jumping into the good part, which is the demo itself, where we want to showcase what we have built. But before we get to what we have built, we want to get to the problem that we are trying to address. And we are going to end this, take this webinar to a best practices session around health configuration, how you should go about it, things like those. And as Nilesh has said, the more questions, the better. I'm happy to take any of the questions that you may have. So going to jump right into it. So let us talk about why calculate a health score in the first place. We are very well into subscription economy, right? And with the subscription economy, I think the core value for subscription economy is to ensure that your post-sales journey for your customer is maintained. You are able to retain as much as you can. You want to prevent churn. But what a typical customer journey looks like, it starts with acquisition. You onboard these customers, then you're trying to constantly retain them, then you're also trying to upsell them. And why a health score is kind of important here through this journey is because while you're acquiring customer, you want to deliver early value to convert, When you're onboarding, you're trying to deliver first success milestone to prevent early churn. When you're trying to retain, you're trying to deliver consistent value to prevent churn. And with upselling, you're essentially like trying to identify the unmet needs to expand. So like, let us talk about all the indicators or signals that are available today and that have been available for some time as well. We are going to talk about like 4 kind of application. One is billing. Second is your support system. Third is a touch point engagement platform. And fourth is where like a modern customer success technologies comes into play, where we are talking about product usage. So with a billing system, in terms of retaining, you know, like the way we get to know that an account is not doing well is through cancellation request, through a card removal, or through like overdue invoices which have been piling up. With support systems, we are usually relying on low CSAT score or on a very irate customer to know that something is not going well. And we have to work like ensure that this account stays on track through their post-sales journey. With touch points, we get to know like an outcome, like in case you're running NPS surveys, then you would get to know if a promoter transitions to detractor. Of course, you'll not know, you know, that he's going to become a detractor from a promoter. You can also see lack of engagement or low engagement as a signal that this account needs, you know, more hand-holding to take them through the journey of constant value delivery. With a usage platform, you're like relying on the usage trend of the customer within your B2B SaaS platform. So you're tracking things like low usage of key product feature, you're talking about low login frequency, you're talking about active users trend, and you're also talking about which outcome that the customer wanted is still unmet, right? So this is where the modern customer success platform comes into play. If we dig into this a bit more in terms of signals, then we would realize that billing and support systems are lagging indicator, whatever information they are providing us. Similarly, usage or touch points are more on the leading side. Usage is downright the most leading indicator available today around, you know, if customer is getting value out of your product, how engaged he is, if they are getting the value they set out to get from your product. So if I have to summarize it, in case of a billing system, the indicator is way too late in the journey. With support system, you're reliant on frustration to know that, you know, this customer account needs more help, more hand-holding. With touch points, you're still being reactive because like there's no way you're going to figure out that a promoter is going to become a detractor. And you can only act on it once a promoter becomes a detractor, or you want to target your detractors altogether. With a success technology, what you're like really looking at is like the most leading indicator. You're talking about the real engagement that your customer has with your product. And most of the modern day customer success technologies have also like kind of started to convert the signals that all of these applications have been giving to us and presenting it in a more like early fashion. So think of it in this way. In case of a billing system, you can potentially track, you know, what is the MRR trend. If MRR dips below a certain percentage, then you want to get a, you know, like flag up that, you know, this, the usage has been going down, the customer has been downgraded, things like those. With a support system, you can keep an eye on CSAT trend and see like if it is declining or constantly increasing. With a reactive system, you can rely on the last touch point that you have had. But at the core of it, these are the kind of signals that are available today. And keeping all of this in like, you know, at the back of my head, I would like to define my 3 core tenets of a health score, right?
So, I'd like to interrupt you here, like just had a quick question. So you talked about indicators which are lagging. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you said that these are the there will be some indicators from each which will be required, even let's say if you had customer success technology in place. Mm-hmm. But let's say assume that, you know, like my company is just starting right now and I'm not ready yet for a customer success technology. which are the signals which would be like really critical for me to monitor, and how, like, till, let's say the customer success technology is in place? And can we even like do it maybe without a customer success technology, the signals, understanding the signals and using them to maybe react better?
So Nilesh, I think it's part of a bigger discussion really. Like if you're starting out, which market are you targeting? What is your ARPA with each customer you're signing up? And like where your focus can be when it comes to deciding whether you should adopt a customer success technology or not. But having said that, if you're really looking at like signals that you can leverage straight away, would be a low CSAT score or like NPS survey, what your NPS survey has been telling you. But having said that, I think there's none of these metrics kind of, comes close to what a customer success platform gives you in terms of the leading indicator, which is the real engagement.
So Anadi, while you're sort of on this, so you're obviously indicating that billing and support being our lagging indicators. While they're while they're lagging, so when you say they're lagging, they're not important anymore, or they're still important, but we just need to be aware that they're lagging?
So I think with a lagging indicator, they are still better than having nothing at all.
Okay.
For example, like if you do not have a customer success technology, it's useful to know that a card has been removed.
Okay.
Even if that customer hasn't churned, you can reach out and figure out what is happening, right? Similarly, with a success system, irate customer is always giving you an incentive to reach out, right? So you can leverage this, but at the core, this is happening after the fact. I think like that is where the key differentiation happens between a lagging and leading indicator. Lagging is better than nothing for sure.
Got it. And while, let's say, we do move to, when we do move to a leading indicator, let's say a customer health score or the modern customer success platform, the way you describe it, does that mean then I should stop worrying about the lagging indicators, or I should continue to learn from them? Should we just ignore them after that?
No, I don't think we should be ignoring it. Depending on the kind of like business you are in, depending on your business dynamic, engagement might be very high value activity that you have to do. If you're selling out to a lot of enterprises in particular, relationship in essence like becomes very important. Similarly with support, you do not want people to be having a bad service experience, because the minute you're having bad experience, you are essentially having bad human interaction. And that can bundle on. Even if I'm getting like value out of my product, I still might be, like on my way to like evaluating, is this the right company that I want to be associated with? So I hope that this kind of clarifies like the question that you had.
No, yes, it did. Thank you. All right. Let's keep going forward.
Perfect. So going back to the 3 core tenets of health score, as I like to call them, any health score based workflow should essentially be facilitating 3 things. 1, it should serve as an early warning system. That's like a basic rudimentary thing to me. Then second, once it is like warning you, if it is giving you an indicator, it should always drive a specific action. And third is that you should not only be acting, but you should also be validating if you're getting a specific outcome that you're driving for. So you need to understand what is going wrong and what does it take to resolve that and get account back on track. So keeping that, like these 4 tenets, I'll like to move to the...
Can you get a small example for the audience? Like, what do you mean when you say by driving a specific action and then validating a specific outcome?
Perfect question. So think of it in this way, that if my early warning system is telling me that product usage has been dipping, I need to know like what milestone is the customer aiming for? Are those milestones still being met? Is this the next milestone that I should be driving them towards to ensure that their product adoption is on track? So I need to know what exactly is going wrong, what I need to aim for, so that I can ensure that my communication and engagement with my customer is like getting to an outcome which is what the other side wants, right? So that is the only way we should talk about like
So for an example, let's say if I'm a CRM company, then what will be an early warning system look like? Are you going to be, if you're covering that later in the deck, you can hold on. Yeah.
CRM system is like the easiest to predict. If there are no leads being generated, you're dead. If you haven't had like any lead in 3-4 days, you should be going in and checking in.
So that becomes part of your example of an early warning system.
Yes. But I need to know that leads are not being created, and like leads should be like keep on getting created for my customer to get value out of it.
Got it.
So that will ensure that I'll go and check in. Hey, have you embedded our script? If you haven't embedded our script, can you do it?
You mean the CRM script that is embedded on the website
on the web page.
to capture leads?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're still talking about the CRM feature. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. So, and then what will be the specific action in that case? Let's say somebody is not generating enough leads, then what sort of an action you would expect?
So the kind of action that you can go for in a CRM system would be to identify what mode of lead generation exists and ensuring that, there are no blockers on path of it. People understand that all these options exist and they realize the smallest way that they can get started to generating leads for their CRM.
Got it. So essentially, let's say if customer A is not generating leads and the early warning system sort of warns about it, then the expectation is that the customer success manager is going to pick up the phone and speak to them, write them an email, send them a webinar. What is going to be the action for any of these?
So it's always going to be human engagement. You're going to reach out to your customer. You're going to talk about, hey, we have been observing and we are seeing that leads are not going generated. We realize it is really important for you. These are some of the methods that we have to facilitate lead generation. You can simply embed this small JS script on your website, and that will help you create lead right within your system.
Got it. And what will be validation of the specific outcome, let's say, once that is fixed?
Oh, you'll start seeing that leads are getting generated. And if you have set up a milestone in particular, then you'll see that milestone go, boom, it has been met. That
got it. Milestone in terms of product adoption?
Yes, in terms of product adoption.
Got it. Let's keep going. Thank you.
So moving on from here, let us take some time out to talk about the traditional health score, which is a single health score. Depending on different technologies have different kind of signals that they already support in terms of what you can leverage in terms of setting it up. But we really want to talk about the experience of setting up a single health score. Just as a full disclosure, we were doing a single health score as early as back as last year, right? So it's not that this is not a mode that people haven't tried or worked with. It's just that once we start getting into deeper conversations with our customers and prospect, we realize it is not simply cutting it. And let us talk about the experience of setting up a single health score, right? To dig into it. And these are our learnings over all the interactions that we have, right? So I think the basic flaw with a single health score in particular is that it kind of expects you to be a data scientist. You have all these signals coming in and, you're expected to set up this complicated health score. You're expected to define the weights. You're expected to tell, if my score is within 1 to 35, there are customized configurations around this as well, that if my health score is between 1 to 35, consider it as poor. If it is between 35 to 55, then consider it as average. If it is anything above 55, then consider it good. But the basic problem is that, you're supposed to make do with averages, or you're supposed to know this complex formula that you cannot possibly know because you're not a AI ML learning model, right? And you probably do not know how much weight applies to each. What it essentially becomes is a broth where you throw all of these things in and, you come up with a score. There's a score at the top of it. It might be 75, it might be 85, it might be 60. And then you simply try to prioritize and work on it. The problem is, with an approach like this, there are false positive and false negatives all across, specifically if you're dealing in averages, right? Think of it in this way. If I've thrown in 10 parameters as for my good health configuration, and one of them is, hey, the last login was more than 10 days ago, right? And if an account is checking all the other 9 parameters, I'm gonna get a score of 90, right? Out of 100, if I'm simply like running on averages.
Whereas it should be alerted actually.
Absolutely, it's like a red flag. You should be knowing, hey, my God, like somebody hasn't been like logging into system, and this is as leading as it can get. So it is like common experience across the spectrum that there are false positive and false negatives all across, which results that like team really, once they get to using it, they generate this low confidence in the score. And this obviously results in a lot of missed opportunities because accounts keep on showing in good health and then they churn.
Wow. Yeah, that's sort of then killing the entire purpose of getting a health score in the first place.
Yeah. But like what you have to really think about it, what is the state of a success team who is like leveraging the single health score? Like team doesn't understand the why behind the score. Team doesn't really understand what to look at, what is going wrong, what is working well, right? And team doesn't know which outcome to drive for. Like if I have a health score of 5, my natural tendency is, hey, I need to raise it to like a score 10, but then I do not know what should I do to raise it to 10.
Got it.
Because like I've created this complex formula filled with 10 unrelated signals altogether.
Got it. Because they're coming from all sorts of so one of the statements that I usually have to throw this in is, on averages is, so you can have one leg in boiling hot water and the other leg in freezing icy cold water, but on an average you're comfortable. So that's what, there you go. That's what averages give you. Sorry, I'll go ahead.
Yep. So I think like there's this like particular like interaction with one of our like customers that we had, selling to Fortune 1000, kick-ass business, has already like a very complicated Excel model in place. The catch being that this person is essentially using like on-premise solution. They are like selling on-premise solution.
Okay.
And once they started working with us, their first feedback was, hey, what are you asking me to do? I do not track all of these like leading indicator. What I do track, I'm not able to like segment them or differentiate all these signals. See how am I doing it in my Excel sheet, right? Wow. And like that was a moment of inspiration. Somebody had managed to come up with a better Excel formula than like customer success technology has provided. So taking this like for some background, let us think of what an experience looks like when it comes to a traditional single health score. As an early warning system, it is too confusing. It causes me to think over and over. When it comes to driving a specific action, I'm clueless. When it comes to validating a specific outcome, I'm essentially like in the blind. Like I cannot see the visibility if my actions are driving the outcome that I'm looking for.
Got it.
So keeping all of this context in like head, let us talk about a framework to fix this traditional health score, or a recipe for measuring health better, as we like to call it. And this is a very simple framework. If you really think about it, it's very, very obvious. And we quickly got down to drawing board, figure out this framework, came to a solution that was implementable. And this is where like we got to with Health 360, right? So what's the framework? It's simple: list signal, bucket them, and then configure them. It's literally as simple as that. So what you're really doing is that, like what are your signals? Signals are any metric or indicator that you can currently have. This indicator, it is refreshed idly, right? Once you have listed down all of these signals, what you're really thinking about is bucketing them into related groups. That's all you're doing. You want to ensure that whatever signals I'm talking about, they are a part of a logical grouping, right? I'm not like putting together support tickets with product usage with touch points.
Okay, so essentially touch points, support tickets, and all of these could be signals and very valid. But we need to keep them,
but you shouldn't be putting them together to come to this like complex health score.
Got it.
Right? So here, like the term that I like to use is that groups, or the groups that you're going to stumble upon, will indicate the dimensions of health. Right? So once you have this, all you have to do is define good and poor health for each group. separately.
Got it.
And like we'll get to why this works better, like when you're actually working in customer success, right? So, but before we get to the product, we want to like take you to the journey of like coming up with this perfect health for your B2B SaaS. So one, like I listed down like some signals that you already might be tracking. It might be usage frequency, it might be the last login, it might be due invoice, it might be the result of an NPS survey. It can be a manual input from a customer success manager indicating a risk score, or we can be talking about outstanding support tickets. The list is endless, really, if I really think about it. So what happens from here? Once we start putting them into logical groups, I start seeing trends emerging. So think of it in this way, that frequency of usage, depth of usage, active user trend, key usage milestone, met, unmet, license utilization, they all are really a part of logical grouping, right? And we can all correlate it to like product signal or what my product is telling me, right? Similarly, revenue trend, due invoices amount, days since last renewal, all of this tells me financial health, if I really want to think about it. So once we grouped it, we realized like there are essentially 5 dimensions of health. One is what your financial system is telling you, all your financial data is telling you. One is your product signal. One is your relationship signal. Are you maintaining enough touch points? Are you reaching out enough? When was your last touch point? Are you doing your periodic check-in? We can talk about the service quality to ensure that, you know, the service request and relationship from that angle is working out well. And then there's always this human context and what market is telling me, right? For example, if like I sell to like a company and this company has raised a funding, that's a good signal to have, right?
Got it. So essentially anything that is happening in the offline world.
Whatever is happening in the offline world, which your success people and your account management team, whichever they might be, they are gathering on the ground, they are reading market, what is happening with my company in my portfolio. Those are the human intelligence contexts that, you know, we can like bucket together, right? So keeping all of this like in context, let us jump to the good part. That is the Health 360, unless like there are any questions that Nilesh would like to put up.
Yeah, Anadi, just one quick question. And like when you talked about, you know, listing multiple signals and you have like bucketed them and correlated them to these dimensions, you mentioned that they have to be periodically refreshed.
Yes.
And so what is the periodicity you are ideally looking at when it comes to, you know, these signals? Like, are you looking at monthly signals, or are you looking at a mix of monthly plus maybe, I don't know, yearly, weekly? How?
Ideally, you would have this data refreshing every day.
Okay.
But in terms of looking at it, you might want to consider the last 3 months, the last 30 days. I think it depends from business to business, really. And what is the lookout window? Our recommendation for a lookup window is always like a very short time frame, because the longer time frame you're looking at, the more false positive and false negatives you're likely to get.
Got it.
Yep. So Nilesh, do you have like any other question that you'd like to put up, or else I'll like jump right into the demo?
So go ahead.
Got it. So this is my customer success box. I'm logged into Joan, who is the like keeper of our sales demo, right? And like she is in charge of the enterprise portfolio of this account. And so like with Health 360, I think like this is the most critical part in here. Once I navigate to my account dashboard, and once I narrow down to my enterprise accounts, here is what I get to see. I'm seeing health calculation done across the spectrum of all these different dimensions. I'm seeing how this account is doing in terms of product adoption, how this account is doing in terms of financial health. Oh, this account seems to be doing well in terms of service health, but in terms of relationship, we seem to be doing a good job at it. And then like you can like kind of like pump up this with a lot of other leading and lagging indicator to boost with, so that at a glance you're able to sort and prioritize and look at the most high value accounts that you should be reaching out. And when you're going into these conversations, I think like just knowing that product adoption is on track, but it's just the service requests which are not going well, will give you strength and like a way to approach this conversation. Hey, we realize that you're receiving a lot of value from our product, but we realize that service health is not up to mark. We are working internally to fix that. I'm personally leading this, whatever that might be. So you can like work on it better to overturn this just by looking at this. You do not even have to dig in a whole lot more. But how do we arrive to this outcome, like with this output of health scoring across all the dimensions? Let me quickly run you through the configuration of Health 360. So one, yes.
Okay, got it. So how do we zoom into each one of those health? All we see is just the smileys, or we get?
No, absolutely. You can jump into and learn much more. I was hoping to take it post the configuration.
Okay,
Does that
sure.
work, right?
Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely.
So like once I'm onto my Health 360 configuration on my customer success box, I can see different health configuration. I can set up different health configuration for each account segment. And at a glance, I can see distribution of my entire portfolio across that segment on this health score, right? And I can at a glance see what are my parameters for a good health score, what are my parameters for a poor health score. And configuring this is as simple as like going in, finding the right group, finding the right signal to look at, adding it, utilizing all the advanced functionality we have built into how you can calculate your health. And that's kind of pretty much it. You define the good, you define the poor health, and whoever is not either good or bad, they are average, right? I do not need a score for them because I do not know much about them to tell whether they are doing good or whether they are doing poor, right? So out of the box, we are supporting a lot of signals which we pull in from all the subscription management software, from your support ticketing software such as Intercom, Zendesk, or from your like we offer actionability right from within the product. So you can always configure your Google account or your Office 365 account and have your email syncing back and forth right within the system. You can always capture all the offline activities that you have been doing as offline logs within the product. And all this data, when combined together, oh, I forgot to mention that we also support calls. So the full spectrum of touch points we support out of the box. If you're leveraging it, if you're logging all your offline activity, you have very solid base for your touch points, right? And you can leverage that. So looking at all these signals and the groups that we are kind of keeping a track on is the health, is the usage. We are talking about the frequency, how many active days are there, things like those. I think like in terms of all the signals that we support, it can like actually like amount to a different webinar altogether. Okay. But I'm gonna like run through like the like the broader groups that we are keeping track of.
And while you're doing that, so Kevin is also curious to know, what will typically go into product adoption, what will typically go into financial health. Mm-hmm. We can also cover and answer
absolutely. So product adoption should consider your leading indicator, that is product usage, any metric that is being calculated on basis of the product usage data, such as your active user trend, or like you can talk about the time being spent within the application. You can talk about a specific feature that is being leveraged. For example, with feature, you can pinpoint to an exact feature which is important for this segment, and you can like define a threshold. You can even do a percentage to ensure that you're ensuring that maximum utilization is happening on basis of the users that are using it, instead of relying on a threshold which will work for a few accounts which won't. Right? So we kind of like have all of this across product adoption. With financial health, we are considering invoice data that we are pulling in from your invoicing system or your subscription management software. We are also considering the subscription data. And with service, we are relying on like the metrics that we can generate on basis of the data that we are receiving from support systems. And similarly, for relationship, we rely on our own touch points mechanism that we have supported out of the box. So you can much go down. You can talk about the last touch point, how far away it was. You can talk about the users with no touch point, who have had no touch point. You can talk about how many touch points have happened in a defined like look back window. And you can also like factor in all the manual risk score that is being managed by customer success managers. So if a customer success manager is marking account as like at high risk, you can factor this, that, you know, we probably need to go in and like take some action in terms of relationship to ensure that this account stays on track. So
Anadi, so Kevin has a question.
Yep.
He's asking, is defining the health numbers a trial and error process, or is there like a method to, you know, define that process and determine the numbers?
I think it's a very good question. It like I can talk about this for like 10-15 minutes. We have a best practices section at the end. We are gonna dig into like how you should think about your health score, how you should be setting it up, you know, where you should be heading with it. So like this section is gonna get covered once I get down to best practices. Is that okay?
Yeah, that I think that works. And Emma has a question. She's asking, how do you get the CSM and sales input and the market trends into the health score? If you can show that configuration quickly.
Absolutely, I'm going there. It's right there. So let us go back to the portfolio again of enterprise accounts.
Okay.
So let us talk about Adobe. This is a fictional account, right? As you can very well make out, it's a play on Adobe. but obviously we wanted to be original, so we changed the D to a C. So this is my simple, like, but I'll get to it. So what my Health 360 view gives me under each account is show me a bunch of indicators which are high value, right? Which let me get at a glance what is working, what is not working, where do I probably need to look at. This is where like I want to understand why this is going wrong and what action should I potentially take on this, right? So under product adoption, I can keep a track on like all the usage trend. Over the months, I can see how many modules are being used, how many features are being used in relatively short-term windows, such as the last 14 days. I can see a trend of active users, whether they have been keeping up, whether they have been going down. If you see anomalies in here, do realize this is a sales demo instance, and this is populated with like sample data, and this is a very difficult process. So just ignore if you see any anomalies. With financial like health, I can go in, I can see that, oh, a very consistent MRR over the last 6 months. Billing is happening, right? It has happened in the last 2 months, nothing out of the blue. It doesn't tell me much. This customer hasn't been increasing their MRR. They haven't been declining their MRR either. So all seems to be fine and well. When I go to services, I can see that, you know, there are like overdue tickets spending from November to February. I can also see that a lot of critical requests have been raised. A lot of them haven't been closed. And I can also see the general request trend over the last 6 months. This gives me an immediate insight into like what kind of interaction my account has been having at the service end, right? And this tells me that this person is probably running into a lot of issues. A lot of requests are going like unresolved. In particular, there are so many overdue tickets and 9 overdue tickets pending from February. This kind of indicates why the service health is poor, right? With relationship, once I go in, I can see all the activity that we have been performing on this account. We can see the trend with the touch points. What kind of channels am I utilizing to reach out to them? Am I doing like emails? Am I doing calls? Am I doing support? What kind of interactions have I been having? When is the last touch point? How many touch points did I have in the last 90 days? And this is where like the answer to Emma's question come. This is our very special tab, which factors in the human customer success manager input. Essentially what you can do is you can come in at any point of time, define a risk score. You can define a risk score to be low, medium, or high, depending on how you're reading it. If you have a bunch of risk factors that you have already observed, you can log them down as tags. If you have like a lot of confidence factor for this account, you can also log them down. You can write a note expressing your thought about this account. You can quickly edit it and like enter all the risk note. So yes, to answer Emma's question, this is where like all the human input comes into play. This is available in your customer success box. Emma, I understand, is our like customer, right? And she's already like on customer success box. So Emma, good luck with like starting to utilizing this instantly. Yeah. So I think like that kind of summarizes the approach that we have with like Health 360, how we have thought about it. How do we want people to be acting on it? There's a actionability window right down. I can like reach out over an email. I can make a call. I can create a task for myself. I can schedule a meeting, whatever that might be. And I want to ensure that, you know, I'm taking action on this. So we have built all this right in, and I'm going to jump back to the presentation now.
All right. Emma actually has a question. So she wants to know what percentage of probability does it give to an health score, and does assigning 1 or 2 risk affects the overall score?
Oh, you can factor it in. Like I'm going to jump back into it like right away. Essentially what I can do is, if my human input is like really critical to the business, depending on your business, it can be massively important, right? Then what I can do is, while I'm defining my relationship health as well, I can like consider the human input right within relationship health score.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Interesting. So what I'm going to do is, in fact, like if you really see the configuration here, I've essentially said that if risk score is equal to not set or low, because I'm talking about enterprise account, then, you know, like this account is probably doing well in terms of relationship. I can also like add touch points, or like when was the last touch point to the fray, right? Similarly, if risk score is equal to high or medium, then I'm flagging my relationship health as poor as well, right? So I can leverage this in this way. But if nothing, like whenever you jump into an account, or if like anybody goes in, they are able to visualize it. They are able to see what customer success managers input on this account in particular is. What are the risk factors that we have figured out? What are the confidence factor? I can see any note left by my customer success manager. So
awesome. Thank you.
All right. So let us jump into best practices. I think it will answer like the question that was put up like earlier by Kevin. To start with, I think like Kevin is right. This is a fine-tuning process, but where our philosophy differs over here is how you set up your good and poor health. I'm going to talk about that in a while. So think of it in this way, that like what you want to be leading with is a simple configuration which is easy to understand. You want to ensure that you are tracking the right metrics in the right dimension. You do not want to be clubbing support indicators in product usage and vice versa. Similarly, like you want to prefer leading indicators as much as you can over lagging indicator, because lagging indicator is always going to tell you there's a fire that you need to put out, but it might be way too late, right? And in terms of like setting up the health configuration, this is what we have learned. We don't want to claim to know what we know. We want to narrow down to like a bunch of simple parameters for good and poor health. The strategy where we kind of differ is, with a good score, you want to be very specific. If you have 5 signals that you want to factor in, you want to ensure that all these 5 signals are checking out or meeting my criteria. But with a risk score, with a poor score, what you're really looking at is to be very, very broad. You want to list down, hey, these are my 5 leading churn signals. If any of these matches, immediately flag this account up. So that is the approach we take. I think like the idea is very simple. With a poor score, a false positive is okay, but a false negative is not. If you have missed out on any account which should have been in a poor health, but is not in poor health, then you're risking churn. Similarly, with a good score, you do not want to get a false positive. You can be okay with a false negative. If somebody is doing good, but they are being caught as average, it's okay. But if you're considering somebody as good when they really are not doing good, that is also like a bad outcome, right? Yeah. In terms of who you are identifying for upselling, becoming your advocate, things like those. Second is act on it, right? You should know instantly which dimensions need work and which ones are working well, which ones aren't working so well. You have to be aware of the strength and your weaknesses when it comes to providing an outcome to a customer that you're working with. And you also want to do a quick lookup of all the leading metrics, and like whatever metric trend can show you to quickly flag up what is working, what is not working, to get into those details. And you want to do follow a very simple strategy, really. You want to act to overturn the health score. Any account which is in poor should go to average. If you can get them to good, it's perfect, but you have to move them out of the poor health. I think it's very simple, and you get all of these accounts in average health to good health. So it's as simple as that. In terms of where you really need to put some work is, this is an experiment. You do not understand your parameters very well. Over the time, you'll understand which signals are better in terms of in terms of telling you which account is doing good, which account is doing bad. So you should constantly revisit your health configuration. You want to apply the new learnings back to your health configuration. We recommend that you should at least revisit health calculation every 3 months. And even if you're stretching it out, it should happen within 6 months of setting it up, because you want to ensure that you're constantly fine-tuning it.
Got it. So Arcia has a question, and she would like to get a little more, want you to elaborate a little more on setting the poor score being broad. So, and if you can especially give more examples.
All right. I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm just gonna jump into this health configuration again.
This is a good one.
Yeah. So if you see that all of my good health parameters have to match, right? Last login has to be less than 10 days ago, and license utilization has to be more than 50% in the last 3 days for me to categorize any account as a good account in this portfolio, good health score in this portfolio. This ensures that, I'm not simply relying on this indicator. I'm factoring in all the necessary indicators, and I'm ensuring that all of these parameters are checking up, when I'm marking this account as good. When I'm talking about poor health, I want to be very broad, so I use any operator. Essentially what it means is the minute any criteria meets, I'm gonna flag that account as poor. In CustomerSuccessBox, poor health always overrides good health. So if any account shows both of these, they are gonna get an indication of poor health. They're never gonna get marked as good health. So that's kind of it. It's very simple. I don't think we should be complicating it any further than this. So getting back to it, this is one about keeping it simple. What we want to jump to next is that what are your bucketing strategy for your own accounts for a more accurate health? So this can also be a separate topic. Puneet has been talking about this a whole lot in terms of how you should be segmenting your account. But I think segmenting your account well is a key strategy to ensuring that your health configuration stays relevant. I'm just gonna broadly discuss 3 strategies that we recommend in terms when you're thinking about how to segment your account and setting up their health configuration. So number 1 is outcome based. You are essentially trying to bucket accounts by their desired outcome. Think of a CRM product, right? Like Salesforce, for example. Different people who are signing up for Salesforce need to utilize it for various different reasons. So you want to ensure that for somebody whom lead generation is really important, you're tracking them along that line. For somebody for whom pipeline generation or forecasting is more important, you're keeping them on track in that part of their journey, right? So double conversion rate is an example of an outcome. Generating more leads is an example of an outcome. And this really lets you develop personas and kind of work for outcome for a persona. So the second one, which I think most of the B2B SaaS products are already set up well to do, is that you're essentially selling subscriptions, and you're rolling out bundles in terms of plans. And each plan comes with a different use case. It comes with different limitations. You might have a starter plan, you might have an enterprise plan. How you're going to track a starter plan is going to be radically different from how you want to track somebody who is on your enterprise plan. So you want to segment your accounts across the line of what plan their subscription is on. Third is where you essentially factor in the account lifecycle stage. I think this is highly recommended, where the journey and the implementation effort takes certain time, for the team to reach maturity. So essentially how you're going to target onboarding will be very different to how you will try to target a trial list, right? So those are few ideas that I'm throwing out there as some food for thought for you to think around how you should be segmenting your account, with the eventual outcome that you want to be setting up a unique health configuration for each one of these segment that you have come up with here.
So for example, if you are, if you can take an example, so let's say there is an account which is on enterprise plan in the onboarding stage with an outcome of better conversion rate. How will that be set differently? The fact that they're onboarding, the fact that they are in enterprise, and so on and so forth.
So what you'll do is you can really play around there with financial health. You can, because they are an enterprise account, you want to ensure they are not downgrading. If they are downgrading, they are not downgrading beyond certain seat, because if they are not utilizing the length and breadth of the product, they are not really they are gonna downgrade, right? Because they're being.
Sorry, I'm interrupting, but the fact that they are in the onboarding stage, how will that affect?
That will impact, because each account that you start working with in a B2B SaaS platform, and especially if you're working with enterprise customers, you have an onboarding cycle, you're hand-holding them, you're ensuring instrumentation and integrations are in place, and you're trying to solve the pain point or the challenge that this particular account had, which they are trying to solve, and you're trying to get them through that journey where they eventually reach the outcome or the first success milestones, as we like to term it.
Got it.
So the first success milestone for an enterprise customer is going to differ with a first success milestone for somebody on the startup plan, right?
Got it. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that kind of concludes all the content that I had, and I'm here to take more questions. I think we have time. Definitely to take some more questions.
Yeah, we do have a few minutes if anybody has questions at this point in time.
I think Kevin had a question where he asked whether you can combine the 3 stages, or is there a best practice for that as well? Can you use 2 or all 3 of them, or should you combine any particular 2 when you're trying to bucket them?
If you're setting out on this in a new, I think this is also a journey. I think you need to figure out which is the most logical way of segmenting your account. I wouldn't necessarily recommend to come up with complex segmenting strategy. I think you have to stay focused. You should focus it in terms of outcome, or in terms of plan, or in the stage. As your organization gets maturity and you start to understand your personas better, their requirements better, that is when you go in and start coming up with these more complex persona-driven segmenting.
Got it. Good one.
Got it. All right. I think the audience is pretty much good with what we have so far. And I think I'm done with questions from my end. So, okay, I think we just got a question in. Kevin is saying your integrations with various other systems to gather health information. As mentioned before, what do you interact with?
Who do we integrate with?
I'm not really clear on this. Kevin, if you can be a little more specific.
Yes.
Yeah, who do you integrate with?
We integrate with all the modern SaaS platforms. If you're talking about subscription products, we are integrating with Recurly, Stripe, ChargeBees of the world. If you're talking about the CRM, we are integrating with Salesforce, HubSpot. If we are talking about support system, we are integrating with Intercom, Zendesk, Freshdesk, even Kayako. And with like in case of like product usage, we are integrating with all the analytic tools that are out there, including Segment, Mixpanel, Amplitude, and the likes. So if it's a like cloud-based application, if it has a set of APIs that are being consistently maintained, then like those kind of platforms we easily integrate with. We have dedicated integration team in-house which works with you to figure out your requirements and ensure that whatever integration we do works according to the business requirements that you have.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So I posted the integration page link on the, if anyone wants to have a look at integrations page. And Puneet just posted a link on Health Score, like if you want to know more about the Health 360. So I think we can call it a day here. It has been great having you, Anadi. We hope to do more product webinars. Guys, if you have any feedback on a product this was the first product webinar we did. So if you have any feedback, feel free to write to me on Nilesh at CustomerSuccessBox.com. You guys have my email from the invite.
So full disclosure, this
tweet
is
to us on
first product webinar that I have done like ever. So like if like I'm always up for feedback. If there's any like feedback around delivery, things like those, or the areas that you would have wanted covered that didn't get covered, please leave that feedback with Nilesh so that we can improve our own product webinars. That will be all. I think like thank you everyone for coming over. Have a nice day ahead. I'm gonna like drop off. Cheers.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.